Hey guys, this is Camfrey15. Thank goodness this is gonna be the last Bears video, barring any updates to this team. Going forward, that where I'm gonna make about last year's, let's just say, underachieving team, and what I thought was not a good team by any stretch of the margins. But I don't really want to talk about these guys because after the press conference, if you guys heard, I don't really care anymore. But We that says to Bears management that they don't care, but I'm joined by my uncle Daryl, who hasn't been on the channel for quite a while, and we are here to give our thoughts on the 2020-2021 Chicago Bears season. We're going to talk about, I guess, some little things that we liked in the season that we actually saw, and probably a huge gang list of what we don't like, where this team is going to be going in the future, especially after what we've heard from the press conference from the organization, and where I guess they're going to be trending, because I don't think they're trending upwards. And I personally feel like Ryan Pace is literally going to mortgage our future because it seems like he's in a, I guess, win it or die all year in this offseason because apparently we don't know when their contracts are up because they didn't want to answer the questions. So I guess the one thing I can say about this Chicago Bears season was, well, we started the year off 5-1, but even during the 5-1 stretch, I'm looking at all the games and I'm like, this team does not look good. They look almost exactly the same way from last year, where they picked off from the 2019 season. They had a lucky win against the Detroit Lions. If DeAndre Swift doesn't drop that catch, we're starting 0-1. The Giants game almost came to the wire. Who knows what have ever happened if Saquon never got freaking hurt in that game. Next game, the Atlanta Falcons. They pulled an Atlanta Falcons, or like every Atlanta team going forward. It don't matter if you're the Braves, the Falcons, the Hawks. Well, we don't know about the Hawks yet, but the Bulldogs, we don't know. They ended up freaking beating up on Mitchell Trubisky so bad, they got him benched, which can be looked back as a questionable decision. Then Nick Foles comes in, and he comes and brings the Bears back. And at that point, okay, we're feeling good, 3-0. Then we get utterly humiliated by the Indianapolis Colts in a game that we probably...
The score didn't show it, but that defense dominated them throughout the entire game, and we couldn't move an inch on offense. I don't even know what they were calling against the Colts. That game ticked me off.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Then after that was, I believe, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, where it was Nick Foles, Tom Brady, where the famous game by Tom Brady, who throws up the fours, thinking, that was for our third down, and he was getting a fourth down. We ended up winning that game. Then we go into Carolina. And Carolina, we beat Carolina. And then after that, going forward, we presumably go on a 6-game losing streak that our organization actually thinks that's a positive.
That actually came out of Ted Phillips' mouth. And I would probably say, listen, and I know we're going to get on this to our management a little bit later, but Ted Phillips has been an utter catastrophe for the Bears this entire season. I don't think that he has done or said anything positive within the last 3 years that even gives me the inclination and he should be president. Moving forward to that Rams game, they showed up utterly uninspired. They showed up utterly unprepared. They showed up like they were a college team, and they looked like one as well, too. They looked utterly ridiculous. Nagy was true Nagy. He called some of the plays that I got to admit, I scratched my head, and we were actually wondering. I live here in Germany, Cameron. The time differences are really, really crazy to sit up here and watch football games. If I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning just to watch a game, the least you can do is show up. And that game right there was the start of that 6-game losing streak, and I don't even think they actually came back from it. Rams.
I guess to rebuttal that point, good thing that California had barred any fans from going because I probably would have been tempted to buy a ticket to that game, and I probably would have blew. I don't know how much money that new stadium's going to cost in terms of ticket price, but I would have wasted my money for nothing. After that, they play a few really good teams because that was the 6-game losing stretch was when they played the really good teams that mattered. You know, they ended up getting beat by the Rams. If I can look on my friggin' phone, I know one of the games we lost to was the Tennessee Titans, which that game was another embarrassment of a freaking game. I watched that entire game. You know, okay, the defense actually kept you in the game for most of the part. Well, until A.J. Brown happened.
It kind of let us down because A.J. Brown made a couple of amazing catches in which it seems like they got lost in coverage as they have done in the past. And I mean, he caught 2 fade routes basically, in which the cornerback got lost in coverage. He thought he should have been in cover 2, which he should have been in man. But other than that, I mean, I thought they played decently well against the Titans. They couldn't cover Brown, but
yeah,
but anyway.
Yeah, that offense did literally nothing. Like even when I'm looking at my thumbnail for that video, that offense didn't score for 3 quarters in that Tennessee Titans game. So they dropped to 5-4. So, you know, the one thing is, especially during this entire losing streak, you know, they always go to the press conference where Nagy gives his little BS press conference where he says, well, fine, we're going to figure this out. Oh, really? You're going to figure this out? Yeah, they figured it out to the point where Nagy, in lead up to the Monday Night Football game against the Minnesota Vikings, he gives up the play calling. And guess what?
I was going to ask you what game he gave up the play. Was it the Vikings or was it the Lions?
He gave up the play calling the game before the Lions game. I mean, before the Vikings game.
All right.
So, yeah, in that instance, they do that. And guess what? They still lose to the Minnesota Vikings because the offense barely does anything, while the defense was, to an extent, taking it to Kirk Cousins. But the only thing about the defense was Buster Skrine. If you saw, starting from that Tennessee Titans game, Buster Skrine started to become a liability and started to get cooked by any wide receiver he was up against. That game was either Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen. So now they dropped to 5-5. So now you're 500. Okay, what are the things now? Oh, we got this. Listen, we're going through a tough stretch. Okay. And mind you, that was 4 straight losses they had. They played they play the so-called rivalry game of the year, which is the Green Bay Packers. And again, I said it.
Let me ask you this. If you're going through a tough stretch, tell me, what team in your division do you not want to play going through a tough stretch in their building?
Green Bay Packers.
Green Bay. That's the one team you do not want to play when you're going through a tough stretch. You want to be on all cylinders rolling. Defense is really, really playing well. Offense is rolling on all corners. But the one team you do not want to play when you're playing bad is Green Bay. Green Bay. And guess what they do? Yes, you guessed it. They got blasted. They got utterly blasted and embarrassed.
Albeit, this is them bringing back Mitchell Trubisky into the fold because Nick Foles got slammed to the turf in the Vikings game, got hurt. So that happens. And that was, I believe, their last primetime game of the year till the playoff game. And they got embarrassed now. They got embarrassed in a rivalry. And listen, it goes to show you, and I said it in my last video talking about the press conference, when our management says we're keeping Ryan and we're keeping Nagy, the Packer fans, and maybe you can say some Viking fans, were literally laughing at us. Now, if somehow we keep Mitch, they're definitely going to be laughing at us now. Anyways, you lose to the Packers, your hated rival, in a blowout game. You know, you were in the game for the first 12 minutes of that quarter of the game. And then next thing you know, you have Trubisky throw one bad pick, which was a terrible interception. And then after that, the Packers blasted you like the Packers have been doing to us since, I don't even know when I can recall. Ever since Aaron Rodgers been starting, that's his favorite team he loves to play, guys.
Those rivalry games, I will tell you, especially the ones against us.
So anyways, you're on a 5-game losing streak. Then the next game, is against the Detroit Lions. So, okay, yeah, you should be doing the Detroit Lions. Now, at this point, I'm personally saying just lose out and just lose out the remaining games, get a higher draft pick. Well, I thought after the Bears got blasted and by the Packers, I thought, okay, first after the Packers game, I was like, these guys need to be fired. If Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are not fired after the Packers game, I don't know what that says. Now, shockingly enough, they actually topped themselves from the Green Bay Packer game and actually lose to the Detroit Lions game in their building when they were up the majority of the game. And this is also when the defense started to be the whole defense. Well, it started last week against the Packers, but this was the part of the time when the defense started to fall off this little high hold cliff and essentially looked like they were essentially like, F it, we're done with you guys because the offense ain't doing nothing. Where they went and let Matthew Stafford, without Kenny Golladay, throw almost over 500 yards. And this is also...
And keep in mind, you touched on it earlier, the Bears were up 10 in the fourth.
Yes.
They were up 10 points late in the game. And Matthew Stafford, for the rest of the game, I think he just dropped back 5 wide, and the Bears I have no idea what kind of defense that they were playing, whether it was zone, cover 2, cover 3, or what have you. But whatever defense they were in, Pagano, again, looked totally confused as far as what they were doing and couldn't adjust to what the Lions were doing to at least get one stop. One stop. That's really all he needed in that fourth quarter was to get one stop. And he couldn't get it done. And the Bears offense, as usual, late in the game, were just totally anemic. Trubisky with his dinking and dunking. I don't know if that's what the play called for those particular times, but for the most part, that's all he did. He never looked downfield pretty much for anything. And the defense that the Lions were playing, they triggered in on that. And they said, hey, if you're going to dink and dunk, we're going to give it to you and just stop you before you get 10 yards.
And essentially one of the reasons why the Lions ended up winning that game is because the defense allowed essentially a 99-yard drive by Matthew Stafford, which essentially made it a 1-point game. So the next score would have made the Lions take the lead. Offense gets the ball back. Trubisky does the Trubisky thing, even though the truthers were somehow saying that wasn't Mitch's fault. But okay. He fumbles the ball like literally in their own freaking, in their own zone. And that makes the freaking Lions just rush it with Adrian Peterson, who was typically being Adrian Peterson. As much as like Aaron Rodgers, he loved playing the Bears. He rushes in for essentially the game-winning touchdown, and they lost 6 straight in a row. And I'm like, okay, you guys.
Adrian Peterson, he dragged about 2 or 3 guys with him on that touchdown as well.
Yep.
Secondary. I don't think linebackers actually touched them, but I think they were all secondary guys. I mean, you would have thought that by the time he gets to the third level, somebody would have touched him. Linebacker, defensive tackle. Yeah. I mean, the play went off tackle left, so I mean, somebody in that front 7 should have touched him, but nope.
So after this game, I know all of Chicago was heated because after this, I was like, okay, yeah, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, can you spare them maybe against the Power game? But after seeing that performance, you can't spare them. If you lose to the Detroit Lions, we got a problem here. But just like typical Chicago Bears, we don't like to fire people within the season like everybody else. And let's remind this, in this current point in time, the Lions actually fired Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia the week before they played the Lions and still won. So I'm like, you lost to a team that had no GM and no head coach. They had an interim guy in there. So wonderful. That's great. So another week passes by, no firings happening. Okay. So then you play right now in the headlines, Deshaun Watson's Texans, who I guess as all Bear fans is the only hope we can have in maybe potentially getting this freaking season. But again, like everything else, we're probably going to be sacrificing our future for him. But we utterly obliterate the Texans. Now, I didn't want this to happen. And I did not want the Bears to win going forward any games because at this point I was like, in my recaps, I was like, just lose out, get a high draft pick. You actually have a chance. If you lose out the remaining season, finish the season 5-11, you might have a chance of getting a top 5 pick. That didn't obviously happen because this is when the bogus 3-week win streak happened that many bogus Bear fans, and yes, if you want to call me a fair weather fan, fine. But for the longest time on my Twitter and stuff, people were like, enjoy the wins, yada, yada, yada. Let's look how that turns out. So, the one thing leading up to this game, I knew Ryan Pace, whatever dungeon, bowels, or what I like to say, his closet he likes to hide in Chicago somewhere. I envisioned that he probably, on the week of the Texans-Bears game, he came out of his little closet and told the entire Bears staff, they better blow out the Texans because I cannot be getting humiliated like we did last year, like with Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, by Deshaun Watson and the Texans. Well, the Bears showed up to play that game. If I'm seeing David Montgomery break out for an 80-yard touchdown run, okay, that seems good. The defense played legit, probably one of its best games ever. But at the same time, when you look at the Texans offense, who else did Deshaun Watson have to throw to? He had like some of his best receivers out. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins. And then the Texans defense is garbage. So they look like...
At the time, I believe, we can go back and look at the numbers if you want. But I do believe at the time the Texans were the 32nd worst defense in the league at the time. So, I mean, obviously, Ryan Pace going into the locker room basically saying, hey, you guys better blow them out. I mean, what else was the Bears supposed to do to this team? What else were they going to do? If they would have won this game in a close game, then I would probably say, yeah, just go ahead and lose out in the season. You guys can barely beat the damn Texans. Excuse my French, everybody. You can barely beat the Texans. But yeah, they blew them out. And yeah, those so-called loyal fans made everything worse by simply saying, hey, maybe we're on to something now. We're good. The defense is rolling. The offense is rolling. We're looking good. We're going to go on and we're going to do wonderful things. Man, you played the 32nd worst defense in the league. What were you supposed to do? Of course you were supposed to score 30 points. The defense stopping the Texans offense to 7, that was the part that everyone really got enamored with, thinking that this Bears team is making some type of turn. But it was just fool's gold because, again, Texas was one of the worst teams in the league. What else were they supposed to do to them? You play an inferior opponent, you're supposed to beat the crap out of them. You're supposed to. Moving on, then we get to the Vikings.
You get to the Vikings game. So what can we expect from the Vikings game now? That game was probably, I would say, one of the best offensive games. Yes, because the offense literally scored on every possession. But to that fact, I will also say that Vikings defense was legit in shambles. Anthony Barr was down. I think he was out for the season. Eric Kendricks wasn't playing in the game. Most of the stud freaking Vikings players weren't even there. Like, they traded half their defensive line away, to other teams because it looked like they're going to rebuild on defense. I don't know what the Vikings are going to be doing. They're somewhat retooling, something like that going on in there. But they end up winning. But at the same time, Kirk Cousins still kind of almost throws all over the place on the defense, which, okay, doesn't lead me to believe, but they still got the W. And again, this is also, too, it's like, well, guess what? We actually have a chance to make the playoffs, guys. Listen. Because this is when the Bears got back into the playoff hunt, like everybody freaking said. And boy, did I hate hearing that. And this is also the start when the Cardinals start choking away their opportunities.
Well, what happened was, I think it was Kyler Murray got hurt. He was basically playing injured the last 3 games. And that really limited what Arizona could do on offense because he was not very mobile. I'm not necessarily sure which leg it was, right, left. But he wasn't really doing very well because he was hurt. And it actually did hurt Arizona's chances to move forward. And in the end, yeah, they couldn't even beat the Rams with a backup quarterback because, again, I mean, the guy was hurt. The guy wasn't even 100%. He tried as much as he could. And again, the Bears just, I don't want to say they took advantage of it, but they benefited from it. They benefited from Arizona's best player not being 100%. And Arizona just lost some games that I think otherwise they would have won. We got lucky getting into the playoffs. We literally just got lucky getting into the playoffs. And then we went, and then here, more fool's gold, the Jacksonville game, in which we just utterly dismantled them. But again, very poor football team, one of the worst ranked offenses in the league, one of the worst ranked defenses in the league. Cameron, what are we supposed to do to an inferior opponent? You're supposed to beat the crap out of them. If you don't beat the crap out of them, what does that say about you? You're supposed to. You don't get shocked about something that you're supposed to do. That's the thing. I don't get shocked about something I'm supposed to do. You don't get shocked about something I'm supposed to do it. So why get excited about it? Bears fans got excited. Oh, here we go. We going into the Packers week. And then here we go. Everyone is Facebook and everyone, we must beat the Packers. This is a rivalry game. We're back. Here we go. And then guess what? Here he comes again. The worst enemy of the Chicago Bears coming into our house, and he treats us like little children. Aaron Rodgers.
Albeit, mind you, in that Jaguars game, the Chicago Bears struggled for an entire first half against those clowns.
That's true. But, and again, you can actually make the case, okay, we struggled in the first half. Nagy made some adjustments.
So-called
the coaching staff made some adjustments. And the Bears played better in the second half to beat them 41-17. Yeah. Okay, but again, it's the Jaguars. At the time, well, I mean, I think, yeah, at the time they had the number 2 pick overall. They weren't going anywhere. They were pretty much playing, they weren't really playing any of their guys anyway. They were starting one of our former quarterbacks. So you know they were in tank mode. So that's what they were supposed to do. They didn't start their number 1 running back. They started their backup. They started their backup quarterback. I think they actually started Keenan Cole. So he played. I don't think I saw DJ Chark in that game, but he might have played. The Jaguars really didn't play anybody. So again, we did what we were supposed to do to the Jaguars. Thus, gave everyone the fool's gold thinking that we could beat Green Bay.
Yep. And albeit, actually, fun fact about the Jaguars, now they're getting Urban Meyer alongside Trevor Lawrence. And I'd actually probably better be the Jaguars because I know one thing, the Bears need a coach like an Urban Meyer right now.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing the Bears management, they wouldn't sign anybody that says, I'd actually do this instead of your plan. Because, that's the one thing David Kaplan actually said when Chris Ballard, a long time ago, interviewed for the Bears GM job. He said he would gotten rid of Jay Cutler on the spot, but then obviously McCaskey and Phillips, oh no. So that's why he dipped, and now what he's doing. Now, Indianapolis, who knows what's going on with the Phillip Rivers situation, they'll still need to get themselves a quarterback, but I'd rather be Indianapolis than Chicago. So yeah, anyways, going on to the Packers game, yeah, all I heard was one thing, and this is the thing. I didn't make a game preview for that game. Honestly, I didn't want to make any game previews for that team anyways. But I was like, okay, if the Bears are taking this serious, because the Packers that week were talking a lot of trash. And I'm like, okay. So I was watching the Clemson-Ohio State game before this game came on. And I was like, well, if the Bears are serious and they want to turn things around and actually instill some of the true Bear fans that know what's really going on, that, okay, we're legit. We were just kind of messing around and we're legit. Well, you'd think you come out and you come play the Green Bay Packers, whether it was close or whether in a blowout game, to beat those guys and beat them convincingly. Well, I was thinking, okay, Ohio State, after Clemson, mostly Dabo Swinney, talked all that trash on Ohio State. What did Ohio State do to them? They killed Clemson. So I would expect the Bears to maybe do something similar, if not just come out and play consistently good throughout the entire game. And guess what? We can get into a whole hyperboles of what happened. One, I do not think without a doubt that Bill Lazor was calling not only the plays in the playoff game, he was not calling plays for this game as well as a playoff game. So one, you had Mitch playing scared. Well, the coaches coached scared and what they were doing. When the Packers kind of got a rhythm of what they were doing on offense, they're like, all right, fine. We'll just stay back on zone. And guess what? You won't do nothing because your quarterback can't read zone defenses to save his life. And then the defense, like the defense itself, it was getting there every now and then. But the one thing the Bears didn't need to do, or they don't have the capability of doing, is getting in a shootout with the Green Bay Packers. And that's what happened. Well, until the point where Green Bay kind of ran away from it.
The Green Bay Packer game, it was, again, to me, it was a game about coaching. I think Chuck McConnell was confused. I don't know what kind of defense he ran, but it was clear Me personally, I would have told Kyle Fuller, you know how much I don't like Kyle Fuller, but if he's supposed to be our best cornerback, I would tell him, I don't care where Devontae Adams go. You need to make sure you're in front of him. Every time, and I counted, every time Duke Shelley was in front of Devontae Adams, they went straight to Devontae Adams. Every time. When Kyle Fuller was in front of him, they rarely threw in the direction of Devontae Adams. They had Marcus Valdes-Scantling on a long touchdown to win. Aaron Rodgers said, well, hey, man, the Bears defense looked like they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a quote unquote.
I remember.
I think he scored a touchdown. I think it was when he had Trevathan.
Yeah, Trevathan. When I saw that live, I'm like, okay, what defense are we calling to the fact? And it happened multiple times in this game. We had this defense being put in position where we had linebackers covering wide receivers. After that, I was like, okay, this guy really needs to go.
With no safety help. When you see a single safety at the top, you should automatically know it's man coverage. But when you see no safeties and you got one of your fastest guys in the slot lined up against the linebacker, what are you gonna do? You send that guy on a 9 and you tell him to beat that guy with your speed, which is exactly what Valdes-Scantling did. He just went straight ahead, and Trevathan couldn't keep up.
So
go ahead.
Okay, so in the meantime, the Bears lost that game. But the thing is, like I said earlier, the Cardinals, they managed to lose. Now, Kyler Murray didn't get hurt till the end of that game in the 49ers game, which was a week ago. And obviously the Cardinals game won. I'm also checking up on that. And yes, Kyler Murray's hurt, but I'm like, okay, what's going on? This game is still close with the Rams and the Cardinals. And Kyler Murray essentially sits out for like an entire quarter and most of the fourth quarter. And by the time he actually tried to will himself to come back in the game, it was too late. And I'm like, well, if you really want your team to win, you might want to get back in there even if you are hurt. There's been guys that played games with torn ACLs, Phillip Rivers, what he did in that playoff game against the Patriots. There's been guys that played hurt. Now, unless the pain's too bearable, we can't get any pain tolerance. But if you're legit that guy, you need to be out there on that field to get your team in that position. Anyways, the Cardinals choked their spot away, and the Bears, even in defeat, back into the playoffs. And you play again the Saints, who I forgot to mention on the 6-game losing streak, but I guess it's good. Because if you go back to that game, shockingly enough, they managed to go to overtime to those guys. But the one thing coming out of that game, which was probably the biggest thing, was the fact that Javon Wims punched C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now, you would think in preparation for this game, okay, don't let these guys get to your heads. Don't let them talking. And watching that playoff game, I'm like, listen, the Saints defense.
Especially Gardner-Johnson. If anyone has watched this football player over the years, you can tell he is an antagonist. He will say and do whatever it takes to get under your skin. And he clearly got away with it with Javon Wims, and here it is. Lo and behold, you would think we would learn from our mistakes, but not only did we not learn from our mistakes, but another player on the same team does the exact same thing. And I'm just like, do you guys talk about this kind of stuff in your wide receiver room during prep? Because obviously it didn't come up.
If you watch my game recap of that Saints game, the playoff game, when Anthony Miller said that one, I said Anthony Miller's definitely gone from this team because they're not going to tolerate that. But what do I know? One, if Javon Wims got away with it and all he got was essentially a slap on the frickin' wrist in terms of just getting suspended 2 games and then getting an extra few suspensions of the game and then getting fined by the Bears, and then he still managed to come back on this team. Oh, and of course, Anthony Miller, despite what they said in their press conference, yeah, we literally wasted 15 minutes saying not to get antagonized by these guys. And it's funny because, again, I was watching the game and I just saw the Saints defensive players just talking. I'm like, get back to the huddle and move on and go to the next play. But then you see Anthony Miller do a selfish play like that when, one, you're down Darnell Mooney, who's arguably next to Allen Robinson, your best receiver on the team. and you're short at the receiver position. And Anthony Miller does one of that. And two, let's be honest, Anthony Miller lost his job because he was the second leading receiver on the team, or on the depth chart, I would imagine, at the start of the year, to Darnell Mooney. And credit to the rookie. He took advantage of a guy that's not going to step up and do his job. And again, that's to Anthony Miller's fault. Earlier in the year, he was dropping passes. That's why I called him Anthony Butterfinger Miller. Yeah, that happened. I was like, he's gone. Just get him off. Get him off the team. But knowing this team, I wouldn't be shocked if they bring him back because they want to.
Things like that sometimes, you know, and I've coached basketball in the past. And if you can't keep your players mentally focused, to me, that is a fault of your coaching staff. That is a fault of your coaching staff, to keep you guys mentally focused and mentally prepared to enter into that particular field of battle. And when Miller lost his cool in that fashion, just like Javon Williams did weeks earlier, to the same team, mind you, and the same player, then to me, that is a fault. That is a fault with the coaches. The coaches obviously didn't stress enough during that week to keep a cool head as it relates to Gardner Johnson. I would have thought they would have talked about it in their wide receiver room that week. Obviously, to me, they didn't. Now, Javon Williams did drop a very important pass, which probably let the air suck out of the Bears locker room. Because if he catches that touchdown, then I got to admit, I think the Bears are in a better position to do at least to end that first half on a positive note. But after he dropped that touchdown in the first half, I got to admit the air dropped out. The bottom just fell out, and they couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, and albeit he dropped probably maybe one of the easiest throws he could have ever caught in his entire career. But the pass before that, he catches a really tough one.
That's probably the best throw Trubisky ever made as a Chicago Bear.
I said that in my recap. I said that was probably the best throw he's ever had thrown in his Chicago Bears career.
Chicago Bears career. And the guy dropped it.
Yep.
And I think after that, we can debate this to the cows come home. I think after that, Trubisky just, for whatever reason, did not want to throw the ball deep anymore.
He didn't want to throw the ball deep, and then I guess you can say the coaching, because I think honestly, I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. Matt Nagy was play calling that game. Matt Nagy was play calling that game.
I think personally, and obviously we don't have any proof of this, but it was a difference to how Bill Lazor called plays, and it was a difference to what Matt Nagy called. When Montgomery was running roughshod over these teams the last 5 or 6, 7, 8 games, to me, that was Bill Lazor. He was making sure that the run balances out with the pass. He knows that if you run the ball, stop the run, and the quarterback don't make any mistakes, you win football games. But when you can tell when Nagy took over the plays, it was for the most part, he's passing on first down. He's running on 2nd and 15. I mean, it was a totally different atmosphere. And then if you look at this, I saw this one where Trubisky was talking to Nagy, and he looked totally disinterested in what Nagy was saying. And at that particular point, I was like, okay, yeah, Trubisky doesn't need to come back because he has no faith in Nagy. You can just tell in their conversations, they were not engaged with each other like two people who were entered into a partnership to try to win football games. And I think Trubisky lost that trust in Matt Nagy. I think he might have had it in Lazor, but I don't think he had it in Nagy.
Yeah, and then after that, and then, that play, the rest of the offense was just anemic. When I saw the final score, I went on my recap, I'm like, it's not 21-9, guys. It's 28-3. Your offense comes in and scores 3 points in a playoff game. And I think there was stat line. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN said the Bears only scored I think 12 points in the 2 previous playoff games they've been under Nagy, which was that game 2 years ago against Philadelphia, and then this game. The defense did you no favors. Apparently they couldn't freaking get pressure on Drew Brees, and then 2, they were letting Drew Brees sing in the round Like he was old Drew Brees himself, even though he can't throw a ball past like 50 yards. And guess what? They were undisciplined. The entire team was undisciplined. They had a lot of freaking turnovers. One of the most anemic, penalties I saw was when it was 4th and like inches or 4th and 1, and like 3 guys on the defense, led by the charge of Eddie Jackson. Wonderful. Freaking go offside.
I can't say roll tide.
Oh, we're when we get into certain player evaluations.
Oh my gosh.
We'll talk about Mr. Eddie Jackson.
I think what bothered me most about the defense was Chuck Pagano, which he didn't do anything innovative to confuse Drew Brees. There was a couple times in which Matt lined up on the right as a defensive end, but for the most part, he lined up in his normal left end position to try to rush the quarterback. He didn't do anything innovative with that defensive line to try to confuse them so that they didn't know where people were coming from. Similar to the Vikings. The Vikings, again, that one playoff year they were successful, I think it was last year. Man, they would move Daniel Hunter to tackle, moving them both in positions, sometimes having them linebacker coverage and then just blitz them from there. They use all sorts of ways to try to put players in a position where they can be successful and get to the quarterback. Not with the Chicago Bears. They just line up in that straight up front 4, and they were all just rushing in straight lines. He did nothing innovative to try to confuse the Saints. And Drew Brees, as smart as he could, whether he can throw 50 yards or not, if he knows what you're doing, mentally he's still sharp. If he knows what you're doing by the time he hikes that football, then it's a wrap. And that's what happened to the Bears. To me, it was a failure upon Chuck Pagano's preparation again.
Yep, and your Bears finished not only the regular season 8-8, but 8-9 overall. Now, after the press conference a few days ago, people are now saying the Bears are 8-10. But okay, regardless of the fact, you finished 8-8 again and showed no improvements. I would honestly say the 2019 team is better than this year's team. Also, when you also factor in the playoff game where Robert Quinn probably had his best game as a Chicago Bear, that doesn't say much when you're paying that guy crazy amounts of money.
And he spent the first 3 or 4 games on the bench because he was injured. Him and Mario Edwards Jr. First 3 or 4 games. I want to say it was the first 3 that they, for the most part, they were limited due to injuries.
So, yeah. So I just gave you a quick rundown of the entire Chicago Bears season, and I said it like I've said in the last 2 videos about where this operation's going. They're not heading up because you can tell the difference with an 8-8 team going up or down. This team is an 8-8 team going down, and ever since Cody Parkey missed that kick. Oh, and a fun fact about Cody Parkey: if you didn't know, he actually scored more points than the Bears this past playoff game. 12 points compared to the Bears' 3 playoff games. So what a coincidence. Anyways.
And believe it or not, listen, and I hate to say this, but our 2 best players to me were Montgomery and Kyrie Santos, our kicker, believe it or not. Our 2 best players, one of them was our kicker. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Imagine that. I know you probably want to say Allen Robinson, but unfortunately, Allen Robinson went AWOL the last 2 or 3 games.
Oh, I won't say Allen Robinson. I'll definitely say if there's an most valuable Bears this entire season, it's Cairo Santos. And the Bears better work on extending that guy. Don't pay him crazy amounts of money like they did with Cody Parkey. Pay him maybe 2-year deal, $5 million, something like that, since you have no cap. But make him come back. And also to Eddie Pinheiro, thank you for what you did, but you're done. That's what happens when you get hurt.
Yeah.
So the Bears finished 8-8 again, going downwards. And we're going to talk about where the Bears team is going to go into the future. And it definitely doesn't look promising, but I guess we can hint some key players out and stuff like that. Some players that should have shown up that need to show up because they're getting paid money. And some players that impressed us and look like they have a bright future. Now, to start off on a positive note, I think some players that I look forward to seeing going forward, if they run the ship right, is if Matt Nagy wants to ever have a, I don't know, a clue about running the ball, David Montgomery is going to be a legit, I won't say like elite NFL running back, but he's going to be a stud star running back for this team. But again, I saw on social media all over my freaking timeline that David Montgomery, he freaking sucks. One, you got to factor one thing: the offensive line sucks, which they still need to work around. And personally, some of the offensive line members, I think, earned their spot. Another guy, I guess I can mention, Sam Mustipher. He was great. There's nothing else I can say. He did a pretty good dang job. And I'm looking at Sam Mustipher, I'm like, this kid was on the practice squad. So I definitely now know the Bears ain't developing people whatsoever, because they leave these good guys that are already better than some of the guys they put on their individual line. It's fine. It seems like the interiority of the line going forward might be better, because you can have Sam Mustipher coming back in the center, James Daniel coming back from injury, put him back at, I believe, left guard, and then you can have Whitehair go to right guard, and then you got your pathetic tackles, which I personally believe you should both cut individually, because the replacements did better than they ever did in their time in their entirety of what they did last season and this season. Now, I will admit, Charles Leno, he did play, I would say, somewhat better than he did to start the year off, and that's saying something. So, anyways, another player, like I said, David Montgomery, even though Bear fans at the time hated him, now they realize, oh crap, David Montgomery's actually good for us. And then Darnell Mooney's another bright spot player. And it seems like we're probably not going to bring Allen Robinson back, especially with this current situation. The only way you can bring him back is, I guess, franchise tag. But then again, you run your risk of who do you select as quarterback if you're trying to win now mode and save your job.
I was going to say that I think the issue there is the Bears currently are over the cap. Now, I think in March is when the NFL is going to allow teams some type of cap relief due to COVID, which only probably gives them an extra $20 million. But I don't think, even with that, I don't think Robinson is back.
Yeah. I personally think he's asking for too much money. I've heard he's in the 20 million range, and I'm like, we can't pay him.
Yeah. He to me, he's good. He's good, and yeah, he very well is. He is a number one. But I gotta admit, at this particular moment, with the way the Bears cap situation is, they need a quarterback. Unfortunately, and I know you're not gonna want to hear this, my belief is they don't have any choice but to re-sign Trubisky unless they make a trade for a top-tier QB.
I think that bridge, personally, in my opinion, I think that bridge is dead.
Say it again.
I think that bridge is dead.
No, it probably is. But then again, where do they go? I mean, they're gonna draft a quarterback and hope that Nagy can develop him. I mean, he couldn't with Trubisky. So what makes you think you bring in a young quarterback in that's a rookie? You think he'll be able to develop this guy? I mean, it's more fool's gold. They have to go out and grab an experienced starting quarterback. Nick Foles, to me, was never a starting quarterback. He was always a backup quarterback. Again, that Super Bowl they won, again, was fool's gold. So you can't really do anything there. But you have to be able to do something with the players that are currently on your roster, your cap for next year. I mean, I think they need you got Massey and Leno Jr. They're making a nice little penny. Kyle Fuller is going into his last year. Akeem Hicks is going into his last year, and all of these guys make some serious money. So I'm thinking that if you honestly want to deal for, let's just say, a quarterback like Watson, I mean, you're going to probably have to offer one of those guys to get him, in addition to your current draft pick, which I don't think the Bears are going to do.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Knowing Ryan Pace, he'll probably do something crazy.
But there are no free agent quarterbacks out there to my liking. I mean, Dak Prescott is going to re-sign with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I don't want Andy Dalton. Ryan Fitzpatrick is too old. I mean, Jameis Winston, you don't want him with Matt Nagy. I mean, there are Cam Newton. He proved with potentially the greatest coach of all time that he couldn't be effective anymore. So, I mean, there are no quarterbacks on the open market right now that I honestly think the Bears should even think about considering. I mean, now via trade, he's going to have to, because Ryan Pace, he signed an extension. 2018, he signed a 3-year extension. So if I'm correct, by retaining him, they're going to line up his contract with Matt Nagy so that they're together in this whole thing. They're going to have to make a splash to keep their jobs and get renewed by the Bears. They're going to have to, which means they're going to have to deal for a top tier quarterback. Now, whether that's Sam Darnold, whether that's Deshaun Watson, they're going to have to deal for a top quarterback.
And the thing about the press conference, the end of the year press conference, the reporters, again, I'm going to say it again. Credit to all those Chicago Bear media reporters. They asked these guys the tough questions. They were just dodging the questions and trying not to answer them. They asked multiple times about the extensions, which again has Bear fans scared of the fact that maybe the Bears secretly did give these clowns extensions, mostly Ryan Pace and stuff like that, because they never spoke anything of it. It seems like from what apparently McCaskey and Phillips says, this year, if they don't get nothing done this year, then they'll probably be gone. We just don't know. Going from that topic, I already spoke about Darnell Mooney, how much I like him. He looks like he's going to be promising. They had a freaking top pick. I would say instead of take a quarterback, get Devontae Smith. But you don't have a top pick. Huh. Anyways, and then I would say the last player that did good for me out of the young players, along with Carlos Santos.
I was going to say the Bears got to figure out a way to get back in the first round. They pretty much they did give up a lot of picks for Matt, but they got to figure out a way to get if they can't get a quarterback via trade, they got to figure out a way to, either way it go, it's got to be via trade. Trade to get into the first round and get a quarterback, or find another taker for this high price talent we have on this football team and get a quarterback. In the end, if Pace and Nagy are going to be successful, it stops and ends with the quarterback position. It really does. It stops and ends with that position. We have seen what great quarterbacks can do in the NFL. And we all know if you got a great quarterback, everything else will fall into place. And right now, the Bears have been lacking that.
Yeah. And then I guess I can say the only other last few players, Jalen Johnson, I haven't got stretched out on him, but he seems like he's going to be a pretty talented corner the more he develops. So we'll see more from him. Obviously, Roquan Smith, I would probably say he's the Bears' best player on the team right now because that guy's killing. Again, how he doesn't get recognized for All-Pro or Pro Bowl, I don't know why. Okay, that's fine. That's really the only few players I'm going to say off the defensive side because nobody else showed up. And then one of the last few bright spots I saw was Cole Kmet. When he was put in the game and they passes his way, I was watching this guy drag dang near 5 guys on his back, and he's still not going down.
That's another reason why I say that's another reason why I was also saying you can tell the difference between when Lazor was calling plays and when Nagy was calling plays. My belief is when Lazor was calling plays, he made sure Cole Kmet was on the field. He made sure Cole Kmet was part of the game plan. He made sure that ball was in Cole Kmet's hands. When Nagy got the doggone, when Nagy started play calling again, you saw the difference. It was Jimmy Graham. And he lined them up in typical Jimmy Graham type positions, wide receiver, slot, because he knows doggone well he lines them up at tight end. He ain't blocking nobody. So again, it's just going to have to be a lot of changes that I honestly see, but they're going to make these changes to save their jobs now. So hopefully you can hang, well, it's the McCaskey. So I always say what's the constant with all the Bears failures over the years? The McCaskies. Yep. I mean, Ted Phillips has been president for how long now?
22 seasons.
How many?
22 seasons.
22 seasons. And in that 22 seasons, he's gone to the playoffs 6 times. Tells you everything you need to know about Ted Phillips.
Yeah.
Tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
So it's just one bad thing after another, and and the McCaskies are really good at having fall guys. They're going to make sure that Pace and Nagy are the fall guys, and we know they're not going to sell the team because the Bears make an astounding amount of money. As long as they're making money, you honestly think that the McCaskies can care less about winning or losing. They'll get a camera in front of their face and they'll actually say certain things just to get us Bears fans hyped up. But you buy those tickets. Keep buying them tickets. Keep buying them NFL packages and things of that nature so the Bears can get their cut. But in the end, the McCaskies seem like they can care less whether we win or lose. Winning for me is ticket receipts. That's the McCaskies. So I just honestly think that moving forward, that I just don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. It depends on the next quarterback. It really does. It really depends on the next quarterback.
Yeah. And to close out the statements on Cole Kmet, whenever his deal's up, they better not do him like they did Greg Olsen. They just better not.
That kid is a stud. That kid is a flat-out stud. He is, but then again, we knew it on draft day when we talked about him.
Yep.
That kid is a flat-out stud. And what that kid needs now is a quarterback. That's exactly what he needs. He needs a quarterback. And whether they get it via the draft or via free agency, personally, I think they got to get it via trade. They have too much high-priced talent to just sign somebody outright. They do. Here, as a matter of fact, here I was pulling up their salary cap numbers. Akeem Hicks, his cap numbers at $12 million. Kyle Fuller's at $20 million. Charles Leno Jr. is at 11.3. Massey's at 9.3. These are some crazy numbers. They got to get rid of that. And right now, according to overthecap.com, they're $89,000 over the cap. And that's prior to the COVID increase that I believe is going to come in March for about $20 million. And even then, it really won't help their cap numbers because, again, the belief for me is that they're going to have to sign a quarterback. And I think their last resort is going to be Mitchell Trubisky.
Could be. We'll just have to find out. Now let's get to the players and some things that we didn't like about this frickin' team. I'm going to start off with Mr. Eddie Jackson himself, since I want to get it out the way. Okay. Eddie Jackson, listen, I don't know what the hell is wrong with this guy. For some reason, after 2018, after he got paid, deservedly so after that year, he hasn't lived up to expectations. Let
me say this now. I'll say this in Jackson's defense. And I honestly think Pagano did not use him as Vic Fangio did. Vic Fangio, for the most part, used him as a free safety, which allowed him the freedom to read defenses and go where he needed to go. Fangio pretty much kept him in one spot and in one response, maybe in a few limited responsibilities. I'm sorry. To me, Jackson's failure is on Pagano. Because when he was with Fangio, Jackson was just lights out. There was nothing Jackson couldn't do but tackle. And he couldn't tackle at Alabama either because they played him as a corner. And when they realized he couldn't cover as a corner, they put him at safety. And he did very well and then wound up getting drafted. But Fangio really, really, really took advantage of his skills, whereas I don't think Pagano did in his defense.
Yeah, my thing with Eddie Jackson is I like that guy, but I hear, what do I say? Every time I hear the Bears talk in a press conference, any of these Bear players, they say the right things, but then they don't translate it to their game. I just felt like Eddie Jackson didn't do that at all, really, the past couple of seasons. The tackling stuff. There was one part in that Saints game, he had a wide open chance to get a tackle. and he whiffed. And I'm like, really? Okay.
Yep. It was another play in which he had and we could be talking about the same play, in which all he had to do was wrap the player up, and I think it was the wide receiver number 11 for the Saints.
Yeah.
All he had to do was wrap him up, but no, he wants to lean in with his shoulder and try to make the big hit on national television, and Harris just spent right off of him and ran for another few yards. It's those little things right there that tell me that your mindset is not into playing true football. If you were into playing true football is true tackling, and he did not do that, and especially in that. Actually, Jackson hasn't really tackled well the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not the kind of player I believe him to be. I believe him to be one of them free safeties, just roam around pass coverage, wreaking havoc, playing on the ball. You know, but and Vic Fangio, I mean, he played a lot of man defense, Cameron. We both know that, which allowed Jackson to roam free because he knew these guys are already covered. Pagano comes in, he plays a lot of zone. Just to me, it was Pagano. And now that he's retired, I mean,
so called retired, but okay.
Thanks, Chuck. We appreciate your efforts for the 2 years you were our defensive coordinator. Enjoy retirement. Bless you.
Yeah. So that's it for Eddie Jackson. I personally think he needs to definitely rebound next year. Whoever the defensive coordinator for the Bears is. Hopefully, I'm guessing the leading candidate right now is Jay Rodgers, which is like one of the few Bear coaches on defense that is left from Fangio's time. So hopefully they get it done, deal with him. Another player that didn't really show up or do anything, I think honestly I can say was a waste of our freaking money, was Robert Quinn. I like to pronounce him, say, where's Waldo or where's Quinn?
Yeah, Robert Quinn was the invisible man of the defense.
The only thing I ever recall him doing of anything was that Giants game. And that was the first game he came back. And after that, he went MIA. So it seems like that's another wrong.
5 year, how much?
I don't know. It's some absorbent amount of money. Like
5 years, 79 million or something like that he got.
Yeah.
It was an insane amount of money. And he on the books next year for 14 million.
Yeah, like Eddie Jackson, he better play good next year. Now, yes, can you say, well, he doesn't predominantly play in a 3-4 defense? Listen, it don't matter what defense you play in. You need to show up if you're going to get paid that type of money. And two, even before he signed with the Bears, he had a whole coin flip toss on who he was going to decide. It was either the Falcons or the Bears. So one, I'm thinking, so that means you weren't really all committed to going to the Bears if you're flipping a freaking coin. At that point, you could have just went to the choking Atlanta Falcons.
That's true.
He needs to show up because that is definitely looking like another very bad overpay signing.
Hopefully they can get a defensive coordinator that can work out all the Bears issues. Right now, with Kyle Fuller, if we can get a defensive coordinator that's going to take advantage of all these, because we have a really good defense, a really good roster on paper, I should say. It just takes the right person to put it all together. It takes the right person to put it all together. And again, I think that's going to be the big thing with Pace and Nagy. They're going to have to select a defensive coordinator that can actually maximize the output of these really good players. Really good. And I'm saying that, and I'm not a Kyle Fuller fan, but I honestly believe with the right defensive coordinator, he can be the cornerback that he's getting paid to be. Mm-hmm. And even with Vic Fangio, he had like what? I think the Vic Fangio's last year had like, 6-7 interceptions.
Yep.
I mean, Fangio took advantage of everything that these guys can do.
Yeah. The next guy on the defense that was kind of much of a disappointment was what was supposed to be Quinn's running mate, and that is Mr. Guy who we traded over 2 years ago, Mr. Khalil Mack. I'm gonna give it. Listen, he's a star player, but like everybody, if you don't show up, I'm gonna give you no benefit of the doubt. He frankly just didn't show up when we needed him to show up. In the big games, when we needed him to get pressure and get them sacks, he never got there. Now, again, credit to the teams for double teaming him, but at the same time, it's across the whole board. Regardless, if I'm watching in 2018, you can do all these things. I expect you on a consistent basis to get pressure, and sometimes I barely hear you in the post game or the broadcast throughout the game. The only thing I see of Khalil Mack is when they're hyping up Bear games and stuff like that, and they have the whole graphic where they have the best player on the team. Personally, like I said, Roquan right now playing the way he played this year, I would say right now he's the best defensive player we have on it, even better than Khalil Mack at this current point in time. Khalil Mack next year, he also needs to show up because I think he needs also something to prove. If shockingly enough, they do trade for somebody like, say, a Deshaun Watson, and they don't give up a Khalil Mack. But I still think he needs to come out, prove something next year, and play definitely better for this defense. But the defense as a whole, it definitely took a few steps in the wrong direction. Other than a few bright spots here and there, other than that, the defense took a wrong step. Now, the Bears did the right thing in letting Chuck Pagano go. But again, in my press conference video, which is the last video talking about the Bears, Chuck Pagano, even though it was definitely qualified for him to go away, he's another one of the scapegoats in this organization that they're just going to be like, well, you know, they're going to talk Nagy and they'll be like, well, it's not my fault. It's his fault. His defense didn't get the stops when he has one of the worst offenses in the league. But it's okay. We fired Mark Helfrich and Harry Highstand because they couldn't get the offense right. Okay, well, what's this year? Oh, the scapegoat's going to be Chuck Pagano and Mitchell Trubisky, especially if Trubisky leaves. And again,
and I was also going to say that now let's be honest here. It's to me, Pagano needed to go.
Yeah, he needed to go.
He needed to go, but he's just a symptom.
Yep.
Of the problem in Chicago. He was not the cause. And I know Nagy was looking for his scapegoat. Nagy wants to be the savior of everything that has gone right with Chicago. But we all know that when everything goes wrong and you eliminate all these other factors of why everything going wrong, but you keep this one particular person in his place, what's the constant? You change your offensive staff last year, but here it is. You change your offensive staff, but you were the one that were calling the plays. You call the plays, but everyone else has to go but you. So this year you bring in an offensive coordinator and you still don't let him call the plays. Why do you have an offensive coordinator and he's not going to call the plays? Again, what's the constant? Matt Nagy.
I'll have a word about Matt Nagy and probably a fun-filled rant when we talk about the offense. But yeah, Chuck Pagano, he definitely needed to go. For some reason, his zone scheming was so bad to the point, even when you were looking on the screen, some Bear players are looking back at each other like, well, what's going on here, guys? And stuff like that. And that's what resulted in linebackers covering wide receivers in that Packer game. You know, and then two, his whole excuse was, well, I'm staying back and not being overly aggressive because our offense can't do nothing. Well, when the offense was doing some of the stuff, that was the time when the defense was actually falling off its cliff and not being the defense we would expect them to be.
Well, to me, it was a failure on many levels. Juan Castillo was a failure as an offensive line coach. Bill Lazor did an absolutely really good job. He ensured that he kept moving offensive linemen around just so they can see where they work best. He ran the ball. He knew what kind of quarterback he had in Trubisky. He knew it. You can tell that there was a difference. Herman Edwards said years ago, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that if you run the ball, stop the ball, quarterback don't make any mistakes. Run the ball, stop the run, quarterback don't make any mistakes, you'll win football games. And I honestly believe that if Trubisky is coached in that fashion, you'll be fine. But you have to do the first two first. The Bears couldn't do either until late in the year when Lazor was calling those plays. Matt Nagy seemed to have gotten a little jealous, so he said, you know what, I'm going to get my play calling duties back, but he's not going to announce it to anybody. So if I lose, they're going to think it's you.
And that's why Allen Robinson on Carmen and Yurko's radio show a few days ago, they asked him, did you know who was calling plays? And Allen Robinson, even though I feel like he knew who was calling plays, he just didn't say it because he didn't want to give it away. Because it would have been another thing that Bears media would have ripped Matt Nagy for. And that's why he said, I don't know, but we damn well know that the last two games, it was Matt Nagy calling the plays.
It was Matt Nagy. Now, we can say that Lazor was calling the plays for the Lions game, which we lost. I got that. They still scored 30. They still scored 30. They also, granted, it was against a subpar football team, but you can absolutely see from that Texans game, they ran the ball the very first play, and Montgomery ran for an 80-yard touchdown. Now here it is, and I can tell you, the only thing that really bothers me about Montgomery is his speed.
Yeah.
He's not a very fast running back, but he moves the chains. If the plays are called correctly.
Yep.
The thing is that these players, they work on the actions of how they're being coached. And they're either successful or not successful based on how they're being coached. Pagano was made a scapegoat, and at some point, Nagy's gonna come. He's gonna get that calling too. But they gotta get a quarterback.
I think this is when we can transition to the offense. I'm gonna say Matt Nagy for last because I've already said it so long about enough, but I think this is where I'm gonna give my complete fun-filled rant about this clown to the point I'm probably losing my mind. The offense, okay. The offense, in some cases, I felt like was completely worse than last year's 2019 offense. You bring in Nick Foles, he's going to be the new savior. That didn't pan out, did it? And that's actually supposed to be one of Nagy's guys. He barely did anything. So from the quarterback position, both guys really did nothing. Your offense was the entire team as a whole was 1-7 against teams over 500. Wonderful. Yeah. So that one team was not Tom Brady's current Buccaneers right now. It was Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers figuring things out early on in the season. So one, that relies on the freaking head coach of you're not coaching these guys up. Now, the offensive line, at first they struggled. But later in the season, when they made those changes to the offensive line because of COVID issues coming up, and also injuries played a factor in it too, they found guys, put them in right spots, and they managed to do that. And I think you can actually honestly thank the Tennessee Titans game for half the offensive line catching the virus, because that's when they inserted Sam Mustipher at center, and they did everything else, which made Cody Whitehair go back to playing his original position. And then when you had some continuity going on by when the guys were coming back, you kept Sam Mustipher at center, and the kid played pretty good, and the offensive line looked pretty solid. Yeah, were there some times where the offensive line didn't look particularly the best, but the one thing is to end out the season, one of the positives I can say is maybe you add a few more pieces here to this offensive line, it might be a solid enough offensive line to give you some stuff, because you saw the runs actually breaking a little bit more. David Montgomery getting to second levels more when this new offensive line was put in. So, hopefully they keep that offensive line and don't change nothing up. Again, I would only still fix it for the tackle positions, because I think with James Daniels, who was out, I think it only is going to make this offensive line much better. So I personally believe Sam Mustipher, he's earned his spot.
I agree.
Olin Kreutz, he said the kid is actually pretty good. Along with James Daniels. Cody White here seems like he's comfortable in his typical position he's at. So I'm not saying he's going to be the complete replacement for Kyle Long, but I would say he's a solid enough player to hold the right guard position. Now, the tackles, I don't know about the tackle position. I personally think you might need to draft the next few tackles to take Charles Leno and Bobby Massey out.
I agree. They make too much money anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make way too much money anyway. Another couple other free agents that I'm seeing here, Cordell Patterson. I didn't see anything that told me that, we can actually do anything with you other than you being a kickoff returner. We can get somebody else for that. And from where I sit, Roy Robinson Harris.
I think I've heard that they're going to let him walk because apparently his wife posted on social media that they're leaving Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I hope they re-sign him and package Eddie Goldman in the trade.
I don't know if I would get.
I know, but a drastic somebody on that defense has to get traded. Whether it's Hicks, Goldman, Fuller, somebody has to get traded.
That is
somebody. True. I don't care who it is, but those cap numbers are very large, and they got to relieve the cap number somewhere. Now, personally, I think they're going to release Graham.
I'd say they should.
I can say they'll probably want to release Graham. Now, whether they release Massey or Leno Jr., I'm not sure, but they very could before June 1 to get some cap relief there. But all in all, they got to make a splash with a trade somewhere. And unfortunately, it's too many players on that defense that make a lot of money. And it's got to be somebody off that defense. And it's going to be somebody you are not going to like. Yep. Then again, it might be Eddie Jackson. Who knows? It might be. But it's somebody on that defense that has to get traded. That's the only way they're going to be able to get a viable quarterback. And the only way they're going to get a viable quarterback is through a trade. They're not going to get it through free agency unless they make a splash with Dak Prescott for $8 million.
In my opinion, I feel like the play for the Bears, if Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy desperately want to save their job, they'll do anything, whatever it takes. And I made a video about Deshaun Watson in the past. The Bears, if they really want to freaking rectify the draft of 2017, I don't care what the Texans are asking for. That's the only way to rectify it. And if Deshaun Watson at least makes this team promising going forward, even if it is another failed season, but if the team looks promising, then I will say, okay, I take back things I said about Ryan Pace. And you can just build around Deshaun Watson and get back to whatever you want. So if they want picks, give them the picks. If they want some players, give them the players. And plus, they're going to have to even out anything to match up with the cap. And two, Deshaun Watson recently got paid, although I said that was stupid enough of him to do that. But in terms of signing an extension with the Texans at the time, because I believe when he signed the extension, that was after they traded DeAndre Hopkins. But they got to do whatever they want. I think that's, personally, in my opinion, I think that's the only play they need to make, or they have to make if they want to make something out of nothing. And I guess get Bear fans who completely, and I think every Bear fan in Chicago, especially after the press conference, has lost complete trust in this organization. That was the only move they had to make to get some sort of trust back within this team and be like, okay, we're still not good, but okay, Deshaun Watson. Now you can look back, and it's like the whole thing. I know Dennis Smith Jr. isn't like a thing with the Knicks, but Stephen A. Smith, he's like, well, we traded for Dennis Smith Jr. even though he's not doing anything. And in his time before Luka came with the Mavericks, he was a pretty nice player. You could be essentially in the same thing. But guess what? You're getting a legit franchise quarterback, which your team has eluded you this entire freaking thing. And if you get him, good. You might fix the quarterback issue and you can build around him. I think that's the only play they can make to save their jobs.
Based on the quarterbacks that are available now in free agency, trading for a quarterback is their only viable option. There is nobody on the free agent market that can come in and honestly turn this thing around. There is nobody. They got to make, if they have one or two options at the quarterback position, re-sign Trubisky, which will tick probably 90% of Bear fans off, or make a trade for a viable quarterback. And only then, it depends on the trade, the quarterback they get in return, and what they give up to get said quarterback will depend on what Bears fans feel about that. But I think anything short of Deshaun Watson is an utter failure. Is an utter failure. If I'm McCaskey, I say, listen here, I don't care what I got to give up to get Deshaun Watson, but you go get him. And I can tell you, the only thing they got is defensive players. Defense, they make the majority of the money on the Bears cap. Defensive players, they're going to have to give them up.
Yep.
I mean, why keep them? They're failing. They're failing. I mean, you just got a bunch of overpriced guys out there just hanging around. We need some guys that come in on that defense and be hungry. And I don't think these guys that are on this current defense, I just don't think they're hungry anymore. I just don't think they're hungry. Got to make a trade. That's the only way. Got to make a trade.
The only other position we haven't talked about on offense is the wide receiving core, which that looks like that's being depleted as fast as before the 2018 season, where we're just having a bunch of guys. Now, that's going to be another issue they're going to have to address, and that's another issue, the fact that, things like Anthony Miller not playing like we should have expected when we drafted him. I remember when we first drafted him, he was supposed to going to be, like, in the future, a bright spot. People were always saying he might be future #1 receiver. He's probably gone after the incident he did with the Saints. Javon Wims definitely needs to be gone. So you're down already 2 receivers. Allen Robinson, he's going to be gone unless in some sort of insane way, if he really does love Chicago to its core, he'll take a pay cut. And when I mean pay cut, we're talking massive pay cut, but we know he's not going to do that. So the only really receivers you have coming back are Kmet, Mooney. Right now, Graham's still on the book with 1 more year, but who knows what the Bears do with that contract.
I think they're going to cut Graham. Riley Ridley, I think, is still on the roster, but he hasn't shown any type of potential whatsoever. Okay. Honestly, Riley Ridley used to drop catch in the Saints game. Williams didn't do too bad. He didn't do too bad. He really didn't. They leaned on him. He did make some catches in that game. But Miller, gone. Robinson, I don't think they'll bring him back for $20+ million, especially since they don't have any cap room. Patterson, that team has actually used him as a wide receiver.
Maybe only the Patriots.
Was it maybe the Vikings when he first came into the league?
The Vikings, the Patriots.
Yeah, they didn't keep him for whatever reason. He just doesn't pan out as a wide receiver. People just use him as a special teams guy. And I'm just like, okay, and Devin Hester was a special teams guy, but put him at wide receiver, he was still pretty good. So that really leaves Mooney. So they're really going to have to refit, retool, retaliate this wide receiving core with potentially Mooney being the #1 guy.
My only thing about Cordell Patterson is the one thing I see on Cordell Patterson is he looks like he has the Bears' passion, because I think it was like yesterday he tweeted at Deshaun Watson, come to the Bears. So I don't know if that means they said they might re-sign him for a short deal or something like that. I will say, probably. I do like Cordell Patterson from the aspect he's got the passion for the team. I will say that, because after every game, he would always be that, how about them Bears things?
Well, from a financial standpoint, he wouldn't be a bad option.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be a bad option. But would they actually use him at wide receiver?
They'd probably use him more at running back.
Well, correct. Running back and a special teams player for kickoffs and punts. Yep. But that's not what this team is going to need. This team is going to need a bona fide wide receiver.
Yep.
And right now we mentioned what, 4 wide receivers that probably won't be back next year. There's no point in signing Patterson if that's all you're going to use him for. He needs to come in knowing he's going to be a wide receiver. And maybe he does know something we don't by calling out Deshaun Watson like that. But if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm looking at this roster, why would I want to come to Chicago? They only got one guy.
Yeah, and he has a no trade clause, so he can veto the trade if he wants to.
Correct.
But who knows?
And there are reports that he wants to go to Miami too.
Yeah.
So, and if I'm the Texans and Miami's got all these draft picks and they also got a young up and coming quarterback as well too, I would look to make a deal with Miami. The Bears, for the most part, they really don't, other than the Bears don't have picks to offer because of the Mac trade. They really don't have picks to offer. All they have right now is high-priced talent. And unfortunately, a lot of teams are not going to be looking for high-priced talent. They're going to be looking for picks. Because a rookie can come in the NFL. Unlike, let's just say, in other sports, baseball, basketball, a rookie in the NFL can come in and make an impact. His first year, case in point, Kyle Kmet, second-round pick. A rookie can come in and make an impact in the NFL. Jalen Johnson came in, second-round pick. They can come in and make an impact. Whereas, overpriced players, Akeem Hicks is what, 30-something years old now? Yep. And he makes all this money? No one really wants that. So the Bears are in a real tough bind to be able to make a trade for really good talent, unless they can sell these particular players to the Texans. Because the Texans do need defensive help. Having Akeem Hicks there with J.J. Watt might be pretty enticing, especially with J.J. Watt's speech towards the end of the season, in which he basically said, if you don't want to work hard, you don't need to be here. So,
the Riley Ridley thing. Now, okay. Now, it's funny enough because I think I was listening to a Bears podcast to talk about, I guess, Riley Ridley's in a doghouse with Matt Nagy because he questioned Matt Nagy about I guess, the route tree, which I don't blame Riley Ridley for questioning Matt Nagy because it's Matt Nagy. Apparently, he's in his doghouse. Now, hopefully, Riley Ridley, if the wide receiving core is then, I'm praying he gives a shot. He gets a shot because I was watching this kid in college and I thought he was pretty solid. The only thing he doesn't have to him is breakaway speed. But, he's got a good freaking route tree combination. He's knowledgeable and he's a pretty good dang wide receiver. Like, if Calvin Ridley's this good, at least use his freaking brother and see if he's got some talent to him.
He just signed Khalil Mack's brother, and we haven't seen how to hear him either. We don't know what this kid can do. So
apparently, Ladarius Mack, I think they signed him back to the practice squad and make sure he's there on there. So we don't know.
But that's my point. My thing is if your wide receiving core is running thin, then bring the kid up and see what he can do. Stop letting your ego write these checks that your behind can't catch. And it's amazing to me, especially looking at the list of wide receivers. I gotta admit, we may have just one guy on the books for next year. One guy. And he was hurt that he couldn't even play the game against the Saints because the last 2 or 3 weeks, Robinson wasn't doing anything. Personally, I think he was tanking because he knew he wanted a big contract and he didn't want to play. He didn't seem 100. He didn't seem like he was mentally there. So I'm just like, no Robinson, no Patterson, no Miller, we think, no Williams, we think. Although I do think, we probably should take a second look at Williams. Take a second look at Williams. But, right now, we only going to have Mooney on the books. And I don't think that's really healthy for this wide receiving core.
Yep.
We need to bring in a quarterback. We're probably going to have to bring in at least 3 or 4 wide receivers. And that's unheard of for a football team. It's unheard of for a football team. I mean, and
No,
this is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead. Finish your point.
Well, I was going to finish by saying this is unheard of, and now Pace is going to have to clean this up. This is
Somehow.
this is a situation that he created.
And that's why I said with my videos leading up to the end of the season, the only way I feel the Bears can get out of this whole conundrum is just clean house and rebuild and start it all over again. Trade away the defensive players, rebuild and restart with your young guys and go on to the rebuild. But Bear fans are like, let's not rebuild when it's the best course of action. You can't retool with this team when you have everything right now. We're in a complete salary cap handcuff right now. I personally feel, in my opinion, I feel like the only way the Bears can get out of this is just rebuild. Just hit the reset button, fire everybody, rebuild. I don't care how long it takes. If I'm going to get a product that I can be proud of, I'll take it.
And then here's the thing. Pace drafted Trubisky. Pace drafted the majority of these guys. He can't sit up here and say it was a failure for this player, failure for this player, failure for this player, because it reflects upon him because he was the one who brought him into the fold.
And that's why I love
Nagy does not have that. He does not have that excuse yet. This was not my core because he inherited Trubisky. He inherited Trubisky. So if they draft the quarterback now, which they can't, publicly, it'll be admitting failure. And they are not going to admit failure. I can tell you that right now. The majority of these players that are on this team, they are not going to say that they failed with this guy. Because again, it's going to trickle down throughout the doggone organization. That's why I say blow it up. They should start with Phillips and work their way down. Get a president that knows football, because obviously the owners don't. Get a president that knows football, and then let the president hire these people beneath him. Ted Phillips, the game has passed him by. I'm sorry, 20 plus years, and I'm sorry, just what? I just don't see anything that he's done in 22 years.
Yeah,
I really don't.
And
really don't.
And even if the Bears do say draft a quarterback, which I still think they probably should, the question is, well, if Ryan Pace, his quarterback's options, and we can go back to when he first started. Look at the quarterback options. He inherited Jay Cutler, but Matt Barkley, Brian Hoyer, Mitchell Trubisky, Mike Glennon, Nick Foles. Yeah, that's a great quarterback evaluator, which, again, scares Bear fans. If he does draft a quarterback, he might not get the right guy again.
Yeah. I'm looking to see right now, where do the Bears, because I think they may have a first round next year.
Yeah, we have a first round pick. We're the 20th pick of the draft.
They got a first round pick, number 20. 20-ish. All I'm saying is, if you can get a quarterback, that's fine. It's fine. But
preferably for me, right now, the best quarterback I think the Bears could take.
They need to have a quarterback in tow before draft night. I think a quarterback before.
I think the thing is, if they can, and either they want this kid desperately. I think obviously Fields and Lawrence are gone. But a lot of Bear fans have been saying if they can try to maybe trade up, maybe go out there. I would say the third best quarterback in the draft is probably a Zach Wilson. Kid showed, I saw what the kid could do.
Kid from BYU?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally believe that's the third best. And I'd say if the Bears are committed on him, trade up and get this kid.
Well, they were also saying the problem with Zach Wilson was he's shown Josh Rosen-like attitude. And if that is indeed true, then he better have some amazing skills to go with that attitude. Because that was the problem with Rosen. Rosen had an amazing attitude, but he had no skills to go with it. So this kid, Wilson, out of BYU, if he is as good as advertised, then go get him.
He looks
But
talented. I did watch.
Nagy's got to deal with that attitude if he indeed has one.
I did watch that BYU Coastal Carolina game. I thought he did pretty fairly good in that game, and he almost, got the team to beat, Coastal Carolina. If it wasn't for the play call where, they had a receiver short of the goal line, they probably would have won that game. And heck, if you watch that game, that kid is tough because he was taking flat out shots from Coastal Carolina. They were trying to murder that guy.
Yeah.
So I personally believe that's the best option. I've heard Trey Lance, but I haven't seen much of Trey Lance. It's another like Carson Wentz from North Dakota State.
I will say this, and I'm a huge Alabama fan. We just played Ohio State in the national championship game, and we just played Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm. I have heard Mac Jones too.
If I just don't think Mac is mobile enough.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's mobile enough. So if he's a first rounder, that's fine. But in the Bears offense, we need a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
Because our offensive line is not showing we can block past 3 seconds. But Justin Fields, if the Jets decide to go a position other than Fields, I really can't see him. The Bears may have an opportunity to get him.
That's I would say a 1% chance of that, but if that were somehow going to happen, that'd be good for them.
They have an opportunity to get him. I just can't see what other team, and I don't have the list here in front of me, what other team that may think that he'll fall to them at their position that's actually needing a quarterback. But I can see that if he is not drafted at number 2 by the Jets, I can honestly hope that the Bears will go get him. Because they're not going to get that number. I don't think they're going to get that. Well, they may get that number 2 pick if the Jets make it known they're not drafting Fields.
Yeah. And also if it's convincing enough for the Jets to be like, okay, we'll do that. But
the move up 18 spots.
Yeah.
They're going to have to mortgage the future to get the kid.
Yep.
I don't think Pace is prepared to do.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying try to trade your current talent for a top tier QB now. See if the Texans are going to take players like Fuller and Hicks. I don't want Goldman. Yeah. I don't want Goldman to go, but Goldman gets hurt a lot given the position he plays.
I personally believe in that case, if the Texans say we want this package, just say, okay, deal's done. We'll give it to you. And if they want it, they'll take it, then fine. Your deal's done. And if Deshaun Watson is okay with that, okay.
Want a couple defensive players, throw your number 1 pick in if you need to. That's fine. But see if you can get it done.
Yeah. I said after the Saints game, I said, whatever they need to do, however, I don't care if they win or lose. I think I said that in the Deshaun Watson video. I said when they lose to the Saints, they should be the first people to call up the Texans to be like, is he for sale, essentially?
And hopefully that's what Pace told McCaskey. Listen here, you need to keep me for 1 more year because I've been talking with the Texans and they're open to trading Deshaun Watson to us, but only if I'm GM. McCaskey's like, okay, sure, no problem, but you better get Watson.
And I think one of the few ways to end off this video is talking about the guy who runs this entire team, and that is Mr. Head Coach himself, Matt Nagy, which he's incompetent enough as himself. And if you've seen my videos, you understand that I've talked about this man in probably the most derogatory term of the way. I'm sorry. This guy, listen, okay, if Pace stayed, fine, but he got 1 more year. But I wanted to see this guy, Matt Nagy, go away. Like, this guy, okay.
Obviously, let me just cut you off there because I see you're a little emotionally compromised. And I understand that because I get emotionally compromised when I talk about Matt Nagy as well, too. Firing Pace would have ultimately meant you had to fire Nagy.
Yeah.
You had to. Getting rid of Phillips means you would have had to get rid of everything beneath him. So Phillips knew that if he got rid of Pace, he was going to have to hire a new GM. That new GM was going to wind up hiring a new coach. No one wants to inherit anybody. So that's why what Phillips decided to do, well, I'm assuming McCaskey told Phillips, listen, restructure Pace so that both Pace and Nagy expire out on the same year. And if we are successful, then I'll retain them. But if we're not, I'll let them go. Just like, let's just say, if you fire, it's a trickle-down effect. If you fire Pace, Matt Nagy knows he's gone.
Gotta go.
Mitchell, he's gone because they're all tied to each other. But bringing them all back is just
personally, if you ask, you can make a comment. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I did say in my press conference video that I guess David Kaplan's point about Phillips retiring was completely wrong. I think,
that was some bull. We all knew it.
Yeah, I think that got put out in the headlines just to
what people wanted to hear.
Yeah, I think that just got put in the headlines to give Bear fans potentially hope that okay, Phillips is going. I personally think if the season sucks, Phillips just needs to go. Like, just retire, get it over with. You can make your money. The McCaskey can give you any sort of incremental paychecks they want since they love you like a brother.
Another one of their organizations, and then you can go ahead and live the sweet life out. But let's get a president up in here that knows football. Honestly, he don't have to know football. He just has to know people. If you know people, you can find the right person to be able to insert in a position that can do the job effectively. Like, for example, there was a report saying that Theo Epstein would make a nice president. Maybe so, maybe not. But one thing I can automatically tell you that I believe about Theo Epstein is that he knows how to hire people beneath him. He knows how to get people beneath him and says, listen here, this is the job I want done. Go and do it. Thus, Jed Hoyer now has taken his position after he decided to leave the Cubs. Mm-hmm. Just get someone who knows what the heck they are doing. That's it. You don't have to know anything about football. You just have to know how to hire football people. And that's what the president of the organization just has not been able to do.
I personally believe if they want Phillips to stay so bad, how about this? You take away the president role from him and just put him in some sort of financial role or something like that, where you worry about your financials. He seems like he's more of a financial type of guy. I ain't no accountant, nor do I want to be, even though I take a business major. But if he's better at that, put him in that and get somebody who can do football stuff in the president.
Yeah, typical football guy, save me some money so that I can make more money elsewhere. Forget about winning or losing. I just want to be able to be in a position so that I earn a profit. That's all I want. And I'm pretty sure that's what the McCaskey said. Then they'll get in the press and give everyone this song and dance. And to me, Matt Nagy is a snake oil salesman. He is full of it. And you can tell he's full of it too. His thing changes from week to week. And his grin, he had that Cheshire Cat grin when he found out he was retained. It utterly made me sick.
Yep. And that's why one of my thumbnails when they were all coming back, it had literally a picture of Matt Nagy laughing. Yeah. And speaking of Matt Nagy, okay, I'm gonna try to keep my cool as best as I can, but this dude irks me so much. The press conferences going forward, I'm not going to listen to any press conference he freaking says or believe any word he says because all he tells is BS lies. He just feeds lies. The problem with Matt Nagy is this and where I stand, and I don't even care who we get as quarterback. I've said it. I don't care if it's Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. I don't care. Any quarterback in this NFL can come to the Bears, and then Matt Nagy is going to be like, run my freaking system. I'm not going to cater to your strengths. Just run my scheme. No quarterback is going to succeed in that scheme. No quarterback is going to succeed. And that's why that's why you can easily tell that Matt Nagy in the last 2 games took the play calling. Because when every Bear fan and all the Bears media were commenting on the fact that Bill Lazor is actually doing a pretty good job play calling for this Bears team. Play calling to the strengths, running the ball more than passing the ball, and putting your quarterback who can't read defenses or can't do anything at a progressive rate that is too fast for him because he's not brain dead, but his brain doesn't move as fast.
And he's putting Mitchell Trubisky on the move to make him think quick. He's putting him on the move. He's rolling out left. He's rolling out right. He did a lot of play action, Cameron. He did a lot of play action with Mitchell Trubisky. And that was only set up because the run was so effective. And you can tell when Matt Nagy took them plays back is when I saw 5 wide on first down. I could not believe it. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Here we go. This joker and took it back.
Yeah, I believe one of the first play calls in the Saints-Bears game, in that playoff game, was that typical bubble screen we always see.
Always see.
And when I saw that, I was like, oh, wonderful.
Don't you have any other plays? And sometimes, and you know what? Another really good coach of mine who told me this, and this was back when I was playing high school, and I still believe to this very day, he said, listen, the threat of the run is sometimes greater than the run itself. He said, we're going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And just when you think we are going to run the ball, that's when we're going to pass it. And that is when that running game reaps the most benefits, because you think we're going to do one thing and we're going to do something else. And Matt Nagy, we automatically know that Matt Nagy thinks the pass is the most precious gift since sliced bread. 5 wide on first down. And he'll have David Montgomery stretched out in the slot. Try to use the pass as an extension of the run. Right. That's fine, but you got to have a quarterback that can do all of that. But he wants to prove Trubisky is this great quarterback. We all knew Trubisky wasn't great, but Trubisky, you can still win with Trubisky if you have the right offensive coordinator and the right strategy to utilize him effectively. And he proved that, but you got to put him on the move. And we wanted to prove that he had a pocket passer. And when he had a pocket passer in Foles, what happened? Even Foles was questioning his play calling. The very first full game, and it wasn't the Falcons, it was that next game. He questioned Matt Nagy's play call during that game. And I'm just like, the guy just got here and he questioning you. So what does that tell you about Nagy? He don't know what he's doing.
He don't know what he's doing. And going to the thing is, when Lazor was getting all that credit, Nagy was like just looking at it because he was just Mike Tomlin, just a coach, just a guy that motivates the players to play and get ready to play. But what should I say? Motivates the players and prepares the players to play. He barely can do that right too. He saw all this. Bill praised Bill Lazor, Scott, and he was like, "No, I can't let that happen because I was brought here to play call." And because he is a selfish man. I almost said something that I probably shouldn't say, but he's a selfish SOB. He doesn't want to give anybody the benefit of the doubt. He wants to make this me, and that's why you have guys like Anthony Miller doing me incidents by punching clowns that just are going to just do whatever you want. And, the moment 2018 ended and they allowed that club dub stuff, players have now been running the asylum. You got guys like Javon Wims doing what he's doing. Anthony Miller. There was a freaking Monday Night Football game this year. I think it was against the Rams. They actually said that Anthony Miller was voted by the Bears to be most likely late to a meeting. And I'm seeing this. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Okay. This man's supposed to fix the culture. He ain't done nothing. He doesn't prepare this team to play. There's games they come out lackadaisical, slow, whether it's on the offensive side of the end or the defensive side of the end. Sometimes they cause penalties. That Saints game, they had so many penalties. I'm like, that's on the coaching because you don't have these guys doing everything. Missed tackles on the defense. You're not freaking prepping these guys. You're not teaching them the fundamentals. You're not breaking things down.
And also, and I'd have to remember where I saw it from, I think they showed the top 10 players who had penalties, the top 10 players with the most penalties in the league. 3 of them were Chicago Bears. One of them was Akeem Hicks, who I think was 3rd in the league.
And yeah. And I think in that
a lack of discipline is due to a lack of coaching.
Yep.
I'm gonna say this again for whoever's listening to this, whoever be listening to this on your YouTube channel. If you don't take anything from this, take this. A lack of discipline is a lack of coaches from a lack of coaching. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple.
And that's why I said that's why I said back with the Javon Wims incident, all they did was just suspend him and fine him. You would think after that incident to make a point to the team saying, we do not tolerate you guys doing dumb stuff like that where it hurts the team. Your friend over here, your former teammate, he just got cut and he doesn't have a job now. But because you kept him on there, it essentially told the Bear players this, so you're not going to discipline him by cutting him from the team, which you should have did. And guess what? Weeks later, you have Anthony Miller doing the same stupid crap he did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In that same Saints game, I think they showed an overhead view of Akeem Hicks actually punching a Saints player on the side of his helmet and how he didn't get ejected for that. Okay. And there's been
2 different players hit the same guy in 2 different games. And you can't sit up here and tell me that's not due to a lack of coaching. 2 different players on your team physically assaults the same player in 2 different games. And you can't sit up here and tell me that's not from a lack of coaching. It's a trickle-down effect.
And when Anthony Miller went to the sideline before he got sent to the showers, what did Matt Nagy do? He talked to him like, he was like, hey, it's okay, man. Listen, I'm sorry. You just can't be doing that. No, you should be up in his face, angry at him, telling him, hit the showers. You just screwed us over.
What you're supposed to do is don't say nothing to him.
Yeah.
You're supposed to. When coaching, I tell my kids all the time, listen here, don't be worried about me yelling and screaming and hollering at you. I'm being engaged with you. I'm trying to make you better. I'm talking to you. As long as a coach is talking to you, you know everything is fine. It's when that coach has, and you played sports before, you know when that coach says nothing to you, you know that's a problem. Because if the coach is not saying anything to you, you can take the assumption that the coach is giving up on you.
Yep.
You can take that assumption, but you'll never know because the coach is saying nothing. When that coach is talking to you, everything is all good. You may not like the message. You may not like the presentation. You may not like what he's saying. It's when he has nothing to say to you. To me, that's where the problem comes in. And Nagy wound up speaking to Miller about his mistake. You shouldn't have said a word.
Yep.
You shouldn't have said a word. You let him know after that game, dude, I'll talk to you next year. Better yet, dude, I tell you what, your pink slip will be in your locker after this game. I'm telling you, there you go. Thanks, but no thanks. You guys were told before, don't get involved with Gardner Johnson. Y'all know what kind of cat he is. He's going to talk about your mama, your daddy, your sister, and they may not even be living. He's going to talk about it. And you let your emotions run wild with you again. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Yep. And then speaking more on the scheme, it's almost as confusing, if not more confusing, than what Chuck Pagano was calling. Because his scheme, the way it's set up, I have no idea what it is. That scheme he runs is directly from Andy Reid, directly from the Kansas City stuff. And I've said it time and time again on this channel. We cannot run that scheme because our players are not the Kansas City Chiefs players. Mitchell Trubisky, Matt Nagy, is not Patrick Mahomes. David Montgomery is not a Le'Veon Bell, not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Sammy Watkins or Allen Robinson is not like a Sammy Watkins. Darnell Mooney is not like Tyreek Hill. Cole Kmet is not like Travis Kelce. The offensive line is not like the Kansas City offensive line. And he play calls these guys and puts them in position. Bubble screens. Never works because the receivers are not good at frickin' blocking. You want to know why? They don't teach them to frickin' block. Matt Nagy doesn't teach. He just says, run it. And they run it in practice because every time we hear after every freaking game, well, especially this is coming from Trubisky all the time. Well, he had a really good practice, so I don't know why he didn't do so well in the game. Because guess what? You're playing your dang practice squad players against these offense instead of maybe using your D1 defense. He doesn't teach guys. And that's why I'm like, if there's anybody that needed to go, was Matt Nagy. In the scheme, listen, we saw that Saints game. He was just dinking and dunking. Just sometimes there was one time when there was a third down and they just check it down yards short of the first down. And I'm like, hold on. This is a key moment in the game where you're trying to freaking win. You need to pass for the sticks if you're going to get this first down. And I see that happening. One of the last possessions before the first half ended. I'm like, okay, it's still 7-3 Bears against the Saints. So you would think, okay, you're going to get the ball back after halftime's over. Try to score and score coming out of half. But this clown runs the ball 3 straight times. And the last run was to Ryan Nall, who's somehow still on this team and he hasn't done anything. He's predominantly been a practice squad player. Oh, but let's use Ryan Nall. Again, in his press conference, he likes to always say, well, we had this guy in this package and I wanted to use it. When it doesn't work, the Javon Wims thing, when he dropped it, he said in the press conference, well, we've had that play in the playbook for quite a while. It's like David Kaplan says on his radio show. What's his freaking playbook? A Denny's menu? First things first, I question. Now, maybe that play is originally supposed to be for Darnell Mooney, but if that play is set up and the receiver should know, shouldn't that play be set up for Allen Robinson, who's your best receiver on the team?
Should be.
But no, let's run it for Javon Wims, who has not done a thing in the NFL, but catch a few passes. He puts these players in these positions where they're not supposed to be put in, and he thinks that, he thinks he's Sean McVay. He thinks he's boy genius, but in reality, he's not. He's far from that. And when I mean far, after 2018, the league, and really it happened at some point in the 2018 season, the league eventually figured him out. Oh, yeah, we didn't see your play calls coming, but you're just a bunch of plays and a bag of tricks, alluding to his trick play calls. And after the leagues and after the defense had not only a few games and film on him for a season, they figured out, this guy's just running just simple, stupid offense. We can play call against that easily. And that's why you never had teams like the Packers, these good teams, just be like, okay, Mitchell Trubisky's your starting quarterback. We're just going to stay in zone. And unless he beats us with his arm, if you want to make him do that, we'll just stay back in zone until we go to man coverage and you force us.
I always say this. I say this about if there's one constant to the NFL, is that NFL defenses always catch up. In 2018, when we had that amazing season, I believe we go 13-3. Defense was 12-4. Yeah. The defense was rolling out. Mitchell Trubisky was. It was one game. He had 6 touchdowns. I believe that was against Tampa Bay. Everything was running perfect for that one season. NFL defenses always catch up. I don't care what you do. I don't care who you are. And the only thing that you need to combat that is a great quarterback who can adjust with the defenses, that can see what adjustments the defenses are making and can make said changes on the fly. Brady threes. The reason why these guys last so long is because, again, they change in addition to how defenses adjust to them. When the defenses adjust to what the Bears were doing, it was up to our coach to make sure this young man was prepared, and he wasn't.
Yeah, and listen, at the same time, I'm gonna also fault Trubisky. Trubisky's part of the blame for getting himself in the position he's put in, because he didn't take his game to the next level. 2019 was supposed to be that, but the coach did him no favors to help him out. He tried to make him a player he's not. Trubisky is not a player that is a drop back quarterback. He's kind of just, I would say, a limited Lamar Jackson type of player. So he can beat you with his legs to an extent. He's not as fast as Lamar, but his arm,
much slower than Lamar, who can throw the ball maybe a little better.
Yeah.
Maybe. Let's give him credit with that. Lamar's issue was he had issues throwing outside the numbers. Tennessee took full advantage of that last year. Although Lamar did clap back this year when they beat him. He made those throws outside the numbers he didn't make the year before. So he did learn. The problem is, the only difference is Lamar Jackson had hardball. Trubisky had Nagy.
And then the difference with the Baltimore thing is when Lamar started, they completely changed their offense for him. They changed from that Joe Flacco offense to Lamar Jackson.
He knew what kind of quarterback he had, and he adjusted the offense to fit that quarterback's strengths. Nagy didn't do that. He adjusted the offense to what he wanted, not caring what kind of quarterback he had. And again, failure to communicate, failure to lead. And unfortunately, we're going to get another, 2 years?
Apparently, it seems like Nagy is going to be tied to Pace in this one final year, even if he is got 2 more years left on his deal.
Well, yeah, because he was signed in 2018, and he signed a 5-year from what I know. So I didn't think coaches had an option here. So, but with the McCaskies, is it safe to assume that you honestly think that they'll fire them both after 1 more year?
This point,
or will they go, re-sign Trubisky and say, hey, we're gonna go ahead, because obviously Trubisky is the only option they got. It really is. Unless, and I keep saying it, unless they make a trade, Cameron, the only option they have, minus a trade, is to re-sign Trubisky and bring him back. They don't have any other options. They can probably bring him back from anywhere. But obviously, he won't get the crazy amount of money that he was expecting when they didn't extend him, or they didn't, renew his 5th year. But the only option for the Bears, and it's hard to say because I know how we are about the Bears. The only option, if they can't get a quarterback they need via trade, they're gonna have to re-sign Trubisky. The question is, does Trubisky want to come back and play for Nagy?
I personally believe that bridge is burned, because I feel like Trubisky in the Saints game, in his post-game press conference, he says this team does not look like they have a culture of wanting to go out there and win maybe a Super Bowl. And again, that says something reflecting on the head coach. So he took his little jab at Matt Nagy. I don't think he likes him. I literally felt like if Nagy stayed, he had to go. If Trubisky stayed, then Nagy would have to go.
I think they're all tied to each other. Because, Pace drafted him. So I don't think Pace will let him go. I think Pace has got to prove that Trubisky is the guy. Otherwise, it's a failure. And if it's a failure, then you need to go.
I just feel like that's – if Pace really – my opinion is if Pace really does feel like that, then you're already losing a losing battle, because I don't know if Pace has checked out the next year's schedule, because next year's schedule it's not going to be like last year's schedule, because next year's schedule, you're going to be playing the AFC North, which 3 of those teams made the playoffs. The NFC West. if the 49ers and the if the 49ers didn't get hurt throughout the season, they probably don't miss the playoffs. If the Cardinals don't choke that spot away, they make the playoffs. So in other words, you can actually say the NFC West would have every team make the playoff. And then you got the NFC North. You got Green Bay, who always kicks your butts every year. The Vikings, they'll maybe get one win against you. And the Lions, who knows what the Lions will do against you. They might actually take a win from you as well. And then the other two teams on your schedule is, oh, wait, you're playing Tampa Bay Buccaneers again in Tampa. And then you play the New York Giants again.
And check this out. A lot of people like to sit up here and tie Trubisky to Mahomes and Watson.
He's not.
I prefer to tie Nagy to Sean McVay.
Yep.
I prefer to do that. And Sean McVay has been to a Super Bowl, and just recently he beat the Seattle Seahawks basically almost without Aaron Donald and with a quarterback with a surgically repaired thumb. Beat them. And they're building too. Sean McVay is a good coach.
And, if you have another good coach, another good offensive coach, Kyle Shanahan, he can use third-string quarterbacks and make them throw down the field.
Problem with him is when he gets to the big games, for whatever reason, he has brain farts. But other than that, yeah, he's been a good coach.
Another indicament where you can also say, Matt Nagy, why didn't you play call more aggressively in the playoffs when you probably know you might lose and it's going to be a winner-nothing game? Go look at the Washington football team with Taylor Heineke. Yeah, he might have had his one-game, one-hit wonder. But the one thing I saw out of Taylor Heineke compared to Mitchell Trubisky and the way they coached him, the Washington football team was like, you know what, kid? Do whatever you want to get us. We're going to open the playbook for you, get aggressive, throw down the field. And he threw down the field against a very solid Tampa Bay defense. Mitchell Trubisky's over here because play calling handicapped himself. They're just throwing ding and dunks, and they're not threatening that same defense.
And I think and they went into that week thinking they had Alex Smith as their quarterback.
Yep.
They didn't announce it until game day that he wasn't going to play due to a calf injury.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking he's the free agent, and I'm hoping the Bears don't bring him in. Because, again, it's another quarterback that you can't trust for 16 games.
Yeah.
You can't trust for 16 games. With the way this offensive line is played, do you think you want an off-injured quarterback as your starting quarterback? No. You're going to want someone that's young that can get out of that pocket when things get wrong and make a play.
Yep.
But unfortunately, there's only two quarterbacks that's an option for the Bears, in my opinion. Deshaun Watson via trade or whatever, keep Trubisky and play call to his strengths.
Yep.
Even with his own defense, the thing is, a moving defense, and this is what Pat Summitt told me a few years ago, a moving defense is the dead defense. And most times when you play zone, you want to stand still. You don't want to move. That's why you got to get that cat on the move. Move that defense around a little bit, and you'll be able to be successful. Nagy, man, you can't sit Trubisky in the pocket and throw him around. You can't sit, because Trubisky is not going to go through his progressions. He's going to freak out, and he's going to make a dumb mistake, which he typically does, and he did it in spades against the Saints.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's where we can kind of end this. And I guess, this season was another failure, despite them making the playoffs. And again, the press conference was terrible, especially when really it was only the McCaskey and Ted Phillips. Like, if you actually say the reason why you kept Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy kept their jobs because of a 6-game losing streak. I said in that video, I don't care if it's the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB. If you lose 6 games at one point and you're a bad team, you need to rightfully get fired. And just seeing this team, where this team is going forward, honestly, I do not know what this team is going to do. I literally have no clue. We're just going to have to sit back as Blair fans and just watch what this team does. And now that Pace is going to be back for another year, he's going to get overly aggressive, maybe mortgage the future to the point maybe you might not get the guy you want, which is maybe a Deshaun Watson. You might make an overly aggressive move, which mortgages your future all over again. Or maybe he trades for another quarterback that we don't need, which I feel like he would do that. And guess what?
Quarterback. They can't sign one to be a free agent. There aren't any viable ones out there unless they're going to bring in poor old Ryan Fitzpatrick.
They might freaking look into the 49ers and say, hey, did you want Jimmy G?
Oh, God.
You don't know what they could be doing. That's why I feel like this offseason is going to be the biggest offseason in the career of Ryan Pace. And if he somehow makes this team get into the playoffs with a very tough schedule and a convincingly good team, then that might as well save his job. But it all starts at the quarterback position. If he trades for Deshaun Watson, fine. But it also goes to see what happens with this team, because I still believe if this team, even if they get Deshaun Watson to finish bad, they still need to be fired. So
well, the thing is, everything revolves around the quarterback. If they get a quarterback and he gets hurt or what have you, and we don't make the playoffs, then after next year, they're rebuilding. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I think next year, based on you keeping these two guys for one more year, it's something or bust. Yeah. Other than it's success or bust. Yeah. I don't want to say Super Bowl or playoffs or NFC Championship. I don't want to say any of that stuff because right now it's totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
But this year, you got to get a quarterback. If they don't get a quarterback that's dependable, then I can tell you right now, man, it don't matter what they do. It's just not going to work. It doesn't matter the DC that they sign. I mean, you know, and that's another problem too. They got to get a defensive coordinator. Who are they going to get? Who are they going to hire?
Right now, the leading candidate I would say is probably Jay Rodgers, their defensive line coach.
Maybe.
Well, other than that, I don't know any other candidates. And like I said, my opinion on the Bears, I said it in my last Bears video I made, but again, to further point home, I have no complete trust in where this team is going forward. And I feel like as not only Bear fans, but the entire Chicago media aspect of this team, the Bears are screwed. They're screwed. Their hands are tied. They're the worst team in Chicago. The White Sox are better than them. The two teams are building are better than them. The out is still, even though I'm a Clippers fan, the out is still on the Bulls what they can become. And if I'm seeing the freaking Bulls hanging with the Lakers and the Clippers to the point they're having me rip my hair out when it comes to the Clippers and Bulls game, maybe they look promising. But I've always said maybe Bear fans need to take a notice from what Bull fans did, and that is stop showing up to the games. But regardless, I think when this pandemic's over with, Soldier Field will probably be a packed house because it'll be the first Bears game in a long time.
Fans are gonna be loyal no matter what. So it's really difficult to say that, you know, don't show up. If you want the Bears to be successful, don't show up. Fans are not going to do that. Fans are going to come and they're going to support. They believe in the whole, you know, mantra of I'm going to support my team. I'm going to be there with them through all the thick and the thin. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, the team has to have some type of loyalty towards you as well, too. So, and I do not think that the McCaskies truly share that sentiment. I honestly think their bottom line is what they mostly care about. 8-8 is not a big thing, but going to a playoff game and giving that revenue share is a nice feather in the cap. That's why Ted Phillips said, you know what, I was going to retire, but since we made the playoffs, I feel we're on the right track. How in the blue hell can you be on the right track when you were 12-4 2 years ago? 12-4, miss the playoffs, make the playoffs. what direction are you supposedly heading in when you were in the playoffs and we won the division 2 years ago? How was that on the right, in the right direction? The right direction would have been, well, since we did so well 2 years ago, it should have been Super Bowl or bust. That's the right direction. But there's no way this team will be in the Super Bowl next year. Even if we get Watson, there's no way we're gonna be in the Super Bowl next year. There's so many pieces that has to be moved. There's so many pieces that has to step up. It's just so many things that has to happen for this team to actually say, hey, Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah.
I mean, we got no quarterback. We only gonna have 1 or 2 wide receivers on the roster. I mean, the defense is starting to get,
They're starting to get older. They're starting to deplete.
Yeah, it's old and it's beginning to get overpaid. Well, it is overpaid.
Yeah.
The offensive line has just been horrible. The offensive line coach seems to be inept. So
that could also go to the scheme where.
That's true, because they say on First Take all the time, a fish rots from the head down. And this one's got a 3-headed monster, Jack, that just, is just rotting in all sorts of places.
Yeah, that's the only really thing we can end this video off on. We just have question marks to where this team is going, but like everybody else, we're going to be watching over the next summer and a half to see what this team does. See what this team does in the offseason in terms of who the DC is going to be, any upgrades this team is going to make, and what the draft picks is going to be. I'll probably still be making videos about the Bears regarding their offseason moves. But the next big video is probably going to be the NFL draft. We'll probably handle it the same way. We do just a round one coverage, and then the Bears' thoughts on it after their complete draft is over with, analyzing their picks, and again, previewing this season that is going to be up in arms that I definitely can't wait to watch, which actually, no, I don't. I want to – now that the Bears are done, I don't know if I'll even check out the other freaking playoff games. I probably will. But right now, I'm too busy watching my dang Clippers. Hopefully, they don't let me down this year.
Yeah, I'm watching. They come on. They start for me tomorrow, 9 p.m. for me?
Yeah.
So, I'll be up. I'll be watching them. Because, again, in the end, we are football fans, so we watch football.
Yeah.
That's the great part. We love it. We do these videos because, again, not only do we love our team, but we love football in general. So we're going to keep watching. We're going to keep, hoping that, we're going to keep being entertained and doing this kind of stuff. I really do enjoy, and I'll be looking forward to the next video I do with you, my friend.
Yep, same here. But right now, that's all I'm going to talk about the Bears. Going forward on the channel, again, there's going to just be future Bear videos, just depending on free agency. Mostly, I guess the only other sports thing wise is going to take notice on the channel, probably big, because I've spent too much time focused on the Bears. Probably just paying attention to some Clipper games. Obviously, if you're Chicago Bear fans, you'd be like, you don't care about the Clippers. But for me, hopefully, I'm praying the Clippers step it up and win a dang chip this year after how we went out last year.
That ain't there's not a team in the league and I hate the Lakers, don't get me wrong, but there ain't a team in the league that can beat the Lakers 4 times.
I feel like we have a slight chance. A slight chance. I think if things come together in a playoff series and they really take it serious and people are all hitting on cylinders, I feel like they have what it takes to beat the Lakers.
That's true. And then on top of that, the spotlight is not on the Clippers, and that's the main thing. Last year, the spotlight was on them. And then COVID took over, and it just went way south with the whole load management, all of that getting talked about with Kawhi and how it affected the team, and certain players didn't appreciate this, and Doc's leadership. It was just the ship was sunk before it even got out of the port. So this year, no talk about the Clippers at all. And I think they got an opportunity to maybe, sneak and probably get them this year. Maybe.
Yeah. The only talk I hear about the Clippers, other than my Clippers media I listen to, is just slander. But I don't care. I personally like it, and I'm like, fine, keep underrating us. But it's like Christian Wood said yesterday to Shaq. He's a casual, like everybody else is when it comes to this league. But other than that, guys, we're gonna get out of here. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your day. I think we talked like about 2 hours about this team, but
Yeah, 2 hours, man. But I enjoyed it.
yeah. So we're gonna get out of here. If you guys like the video, leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on the Chicago Bears. What are your expectations of them going forward? What do you think changes that might need to be made, that should be made? Who do you predict as to be the next Bears defensive coordinator? As well, anyways, hit that subscribe button for more Chicago Bears content going forward, or any other content I talk about on the channel. So then, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there, and have a great rest of your night or day or whenever you try this video. So peace.
All right.